Today's guest is known as the relationship guy. He is the founder of IRC, that is Interpersonal Relationship Coaching, and author of the PEOPEL People program. He's a speaker, documentary maker, and host of the Relationship Guy podcast. Welcome to the show, John. How are you doing?
Hello, Toby. That was a great introduction. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me today in this episode of Mirror Talk Podcast. I've been so excited to speak with you. Like since time we connected, I think about 2 months ago or some months back. I was like, this is very, very important. Like, to talk about relationship, to talk about, interpersonal relationship also.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for making the time to join me today on this episode. I really appreciate it. Before we start talking about relationship and digging down into the old topics and questions, I would love to learn from your own personal, self-improvement journey, like your self-improvement journey and involvement in the field of personal development. Like, can you share this with me? What motivated you to become the relationship guy?
So my journey started back in about 1999. When I went to university to train to be a teacher, and I really didn't like teaching, but part of the course was to do a counselling course, an introduction to counselling. So I really enjoyed that and got interested in psychology at that point. Tried to change my degree to a psychology degree, but I couldn't do it. And I decided to leave university and join the fire brigade instead. So I became a firefighter because I didn't know what to do with my life really at the time. Didn't really want to be a firefighter either. There were reasons why I joined. It was I actually wanted to go to Australia to live. So I was looking for a profession I could use to get to Australia. And firefighter was one of those at the time. And then I thought, I don't really want to do this. I couldn't go to Australia because the rules changed. So I thought, well, what do I want to do now moving forwards? So during that time, I was also going through a really tough period. So I had some therapy of my own. And I thought, well, you know what, this counselling, I remembered the counselling and psychology that I did at university. And I thought, well, you know what, that might be something that I'd be interested in. Because I'd never known up until that point what I wanted to do with my life. And I was like 30 at the time and had no idea. And so when I was 33, I went into training to become a counsellor. And I was still in the fire service and really enjoyed it. Decided to carry it on, did a diploma. And then in 2008, I opened my own counselling practice. And was kind of really from there started to see clients, really got into the counselling thing. But there was something that wasn't quite right in my own life at the time. And I met a coach and had some coaching with her. And she sort of said to me, John, you're helping all these people sort their lives out. Why does yours still suck? And I didn't really understand why my life wasn't changing the way I wanted it to. And it took coaching to help me understand that it doesn't really matter if I know where I come from. If I'm not doing anything to write a new story for myself, then nothing's going to change. So that really got me then interested in coaching. So I decided to do a diploma in coaching at the time and then incorporated the counselling and the coaching in my practice. I did a hypnotherapy diploma because I wanted to try and get as many skills under my belt as possible. I did an NLP practitioner's training. And then in 2016, I thought, you know what, really just want to focus on the coaching. So I thought, what can I use as my own unique coaching approach? So with my background in counselling, coaching, NLP, a little bit of hypnotherapy, I thought, why don't I just start the John Kenny coaching brand and just focus on relationships?
Yeah.
So I set up the John Kenny coaching brand and started the interpersonal relationship coaching approach, which is fusing all of the things that I've done in the past and really focusing on helping people in relationships. One of the reasons I had therapy was because I'd had a lot of difficult relationships of my own. And I was in the middle of a relationship which was causing me a lot of distress. And I really needed to talk to somebody about it. So my history of relationships has always been pretty productive. So I started to coach people to help them to manage unhealthy relationship spaces, because I kind of got myself into a space where I thought I was in a healthy relationship. That's another story. But So I was helping people to manage unhealthy relationship spaces because I had a lot of experience of working in that area myself and being in that area. And
Yeah.
then the pandemic arrived in 2020.
Yeah.
And after the first lockdown in the UK, I spoke to quite a lot of people that were then thinking, I've been on my own for 3 months in lockdown. I've had a lot of time to think about this, and I don't really understand why I've never found the right type of relationship.
Mm.
So from there, the relationship guy was kind of born. And I started specifically coaching people to create healthy, intimate relationships rather
Yeah.
than managing the toxic spaces that they were in. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So now my coaching program, my 90-day coaching program, I work with people to help them to create healthy, intimate relationships.
Yes, that's so awesome. That's so great. Thank you so much for everything that you do for people out there to find the right relationship for them.
Yeah.
But I would love to know, like from the onset right now, like what is the division? What sorry, like why are relationships important? Like, can you tell me why relationships are important to us in life and in our day-to-day endeavors?
Okay. So relationships are important because we are fundamentally a group species. We evolved as human beings, depending on what your beliefs are. But my belief is that we evolved as human beings in groups. We wouldn't have survived if we didn't live in groups.
Mm.
And so, connection, being around other people is a fundamental human need. And if we don't have connection, if we don't have relationships, and especially if we don't have healthy relationships, then our life is not going to be as good, fulfilled, happy as it could be. In fact, there was
Yeah.
a study from Yale University, which was a 75-year study into quality of life. And they made a direct correlation that the most important factor to living a high quality life is to have high quality relationships.
Mm.
So there is it's a fundamental human need to be with people, to be around people, to connect with people. And that's why relationships are so significant and important.
Yeah. And how can we achieve the best relationships that we want? Like, there's something maybe not the best, but like the relationship that we desire for ourselves. Like, how can we achieve that?
So the first thing we need to do is have a really good relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's all about personal self-development. So if I always had a very destructive relationship with me, so the relationships I then attracted into my life mirrored the relationship I had with myself.
Mm.
Um, and the relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship you're ever going to have because it will dictate every relationship that comes into your life, whether it's work, family, how you are with family, or whether it's friends, or whether it's an intimate relationship. So to firstly, we need to understand how we relate to ourselves, and then we need to start looking at all of the things that could affect how we see relationships. So the four
Mm.
fundamental things that I work on are attachment, our attachment style. So whether we have an insecure or a secure attachment. I look at
Mm.
relational patterns. So how we have learned to fall into behavior. We all have behavioral patterns, and
Yeah.
one of those is a relational pattern. So we all have a way of doing relationships.
Mm.
We have an attraction style. So there's the kind of things that we're attracted to. And most of those come from a subconscious level. Although we might find someone attractive physically to look at, there will be a subconscious attraction that we carry as well. So we need
Mm.
to understand what we're actually attracted to on a subconscious level. Um, and I also look at the thing I can't think of right off the top of my head. You can pause this bit and cut it out the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Of course, I could do that.
What's the full thing in my program? Attachment, attraction. Oh, in the belief system. So,
Mm.
so the fourth thing I look at is beliefs. So we all
Yeah.
have relationship beliefs that we carry,
Mm.
as well as beliefs about ourselves. We carry beliefs about relationships. So if
Oh.
my belief is that relationships are unreliable, I'm always going to get cheated on,
Mm.
that love doesn't last. If I carry those types of beliefs, I always go into relationships looking for those beliefs to be made true. So I'll always pick a specific relationship which then ends up proving me right.
Mm. Wow.
And that's the kind of fundamental thing that I look at about creating a healthy relationship. On top of that, once we have a good understanding of those spaces, it's about thinking, what type of relationship do I want? Who do I want to be with? And how much of myself am I then prepared to give to a relationship in order to make it work?
Work, yes. And do you help people with this, self-work, like, working on their belief system or their attachment style, or do you help people, to work on this before they actually start looking for the kind of relationship they want?
Yeah, so it depends what space people are in. So I work with some people that have been single for a long time, so they use the time that we spend together also to go out on dates and stuff as well, and meet people to see what's triggered for them and whether they can recognize red flags and green flags and what's healthy for them or what's not healthy. And I've got some people that are very newly on their own and have just come away from a relationship. So they're just in that space trying to understand where they're coming from, and then at the end of the coaching is to get them into a space where the next relationship they then decide to choose will be a healthy relationship for them. But yeah, I help them to understand all the fundamental parts of kind of the things that I believe are the most important, and anything else that they bring to the coaching as well that's important for them to understand. Get them into a really good space as far as knowing themselves is concerned and what's going on for them, and then they can then go out and choose the type of person that they want to be with and attract the person they want in their life towards them.
Yeah. And sometimes, we have maybe some behavioral patterns or beliefs that we believe that they are okay, they are fine.
Mm-hmm.
But you as a coach, when you examine this or see this, you're like, no, this is completely wrong.
Yeah.
How can we ourselves, realize that what we are doing is wrong, our behavioral pattern is wrong, our attachment style is wrong, or right? How can we, judge this, and how can we be able to identify what is wrong in our lives and fix it before affecting other people in the relationship?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't like to think of them being wrong. I like to think of them being healthy or unhealthy. So
Yeah, okay.
I think that's a good reflection point. Is what I'm doing good for me? If you find that you're never feeling, that there's something missing in your life, that you feel a bit unfulfilled, that there seems to be a repetitive pattern of pain, you find yourself in the same type of situations all the time which don't feel good, I'd say that you're creating an unhealthy space for yourself. So if you recognize that, then it's about, say, understanding what it is that you're doing that's creating that space for you. And then we can start to work on understanding what that is and why you end up there time and time and time again. And then we can start to go, okay, what is it that's really going on here? And then you can start to look at your patterns and everything else, your attachment style, because you can understand a lot about yourself by just understanding what these things are.
Yeah.
You can go, okay, well, if my attachment style is insecure and I'm an avoidant person, I can understand what my behavior is.
Yes.
So I know that as soon as I become attached to somebody, then I might then become quite scared about that as fear comes in, and then I might start to retreat back into my own hidden space. Or I might be a different type of avoidant person that just avoids relationships and close connection altogether. So I'm continuously having casual, non-committal type relationships. And, I'm never going to be really fulfilled emotionally that way, because all I'm doing is dipping my toe into the water to be with somebody for the sake of really being with somebody. So, if you can figure out what you're doing, and you can have a really good idea about how to put that right.
Yes. So we really have to sit ourselves down, reflect on how we are behaving and what we have been doing, and find out what is unhealthy and what is healthy in our lives.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yes. So you said a little bit about this already. Like you coach professionals, like especially professional women, to get into healthy, intimate relationships.
Yeah.
And some of them are fresh out of a relationship, or some of them have been single for a long period of time, like you said.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to focus on just professional singles or professional women?
So it was really to do with the kind of people that I was getting coming to me. So a lot of the people who were coming to me were women, especially. When I worked in with people working on unhealthy and toxic relationship spaces, it was the majority of it were women that were struggling in those spaces. So I decided to niche into working with women because they seem to be the ones that are struggling most in those spaces. So my idea was, when people started to come towards me, was saying, why am I been single? It was, okay, if I can help you not to get into those relationships in the first place, then you don't need someone like me to help you to manage them when they all go wrong. So
True.
it's about being proactive rather than reactive. And again, like I said, because it was mostly women that were coming towards me, and a lot of them were coming from a professional space, so they've focused a lot on maybe their career. They were having difficulties in their kind of workspace as much as they were in their personal relationship stuff. There was getting that kind of harmony between a relationship and a professional career, and that seems to be more of a struggle for women than it is for men. So I thought, if I can help them to create that harmony, to avoid the difficult relationships in the first place, which can kind of stop them moving forwards in their career and stop their professional life, or the fact that they've just kind of focused so much time and energy onto a professional life, and now they're thinking, actually, how do I get the relationship to kind of go alongside this? And it just seemed a natural choice then for me to focus on working with the professional women that I do.
That's awesome. That's great. So what's your definition of a healthy, high quality, intimate relationship? And what are some of the characteristics of such a relationship?
Yeah, so I guess when we're looking at what makes a healthy relationship, I would say that firstly, there is you're both in a secure emotional space within yourself, so that you are able to function at a higher kind of emotional intelligence, kind of awareness space within a relationship. So you're breaking away from maybe all the stuff that you've done in the past, which have caused you to have difficulties in a relationship. So you have a certain sense, like I said, of emotional intelligence and security within yourself. That means two secure people then can come together. And then if there are any issues in the relationship, then generally there's an emotional balance there, which means things don't become destructive. They don't become chaotic. They don't blow out of unnecessary proportions. That you are aware of yourself, I think, is important. You know the way that you function, you know how you work, you know what triggers you've got. You understand what your kind of values and your principles are and how you want to live your life, and the person that you have in your life some kind of fits into that, complements that with you. So you have the same idea about what the bigger picture is. So it's not just about what kind of music do you like and what kind of movies do you like to go and see. There is a kind of a fundamental balance that fundamental idea that you have the fundamental things in common, that you have the same kind of ideas of values and principles, so that you kind of live on this kind of linear pathway together, that you understand the love languages of each other, and you're prepared to offer the other person things, even though it might not be something you would normally do. So we all have a primary love language, and we like to be shown affection in a specific way. But usually what we do, we show affection in the way that we like to receive it, and that might not necessarily be the same for everybody. So if I like to say I love you, if I like people to tell me they love me, then I'm more likely to tell people I love them a lot. But if you like hugs and kisses, I could tell you that I loved you forever and you still wouldn't really feel loved because I'm not giving you hugs and kisses.
True.
So again, it's understanding how the other person likes to feel loved and show love, and kind of be able to put the effort in and be conscious about that. And as I think I said, just to complement each other's lifestyle. So there's not too many fractures, there's not too many differences. We all have our own lives, and we need to keep our individuality in that as well. We need to know who we are within that relationship, and that relationship needs to give us the space to be ourselves. So we have our own interests, but when we come together, having our own interest doesn't cause a problem. And how we connect, how deeply we can connect to one another. If we feel safe emotionally and secure emotionally with each other, that there's a sense of trust, honesty, respect, then again, that creates a certainty and a safety within a relationship. And then that puts our mind at rest, so we can feel very free and we can feel very easy in that relationship as well. So there are just a few things that I think make for a healthy relationship.
Yes. So I would love to move to the unhealthy side of it all. Like what are some red flags in relationships?
Okay, so the opposite of what I just said.
Yes.
So again, if you can't be yourself, if you feel like you're giving too much to a relationship, if you feel physically drained, or emotionally drained, mentally drained when you're around somebody, if it's just difficult being in their company, if it's like an emotional roller coaster, if you find that they're this way one day and that way the next, and your emotions are going up and down all of the time, if they're trying to control you in any kind of way, if there's an insecurity within the relationship, if there's a lack of trust, there's lack of respect. So everything that kind of opposite to what I just said, if you find it difficult to really connect with that person, if they're if you're holding yourself back because subconsciously you know that something's not right about it, there's quite a few red flags. If you don't share the same values, if you're constantly bickering with somebody, and you have differences of opinion, if you don't have an idea about where you're going in life together, if you don't believe in the same types of things, again at a bigger level, then again it can cause a lot of problems. And if you're not in a secure space within yourself as well, if you have an insecure attachment style, if you're carrying limiting beliefs around relationships or yourself, it's and you're going to notice that in someone else, because that's going to play off in the relationship. So they're going to feed your insecurities as much as you're going to probably trigger theirs.
So we're going to feel all of this down in our guts, like, okay, I'm not feeling so secured in this relationship, or there's this roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, if you trust your gut on these types of things, I think a lot of the time that although you might love somebody or think you love somebody, something within your body will be telling you there's something not quite right about it. And it's just being able to listen to those signals and feel those messages and then act on them.
Yeah. But do you think sometimes that time could, help to change some red flags to green flags? Some people think, like, maybe because you love this person or because you think you love this person, like you said, one could work on some of these things to ensure that one finds, compromises or some common grounds in terms of differences in order to, push forward with developing this kind of love connection between these two people.
Yeah,
is that possible?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was a therapist, I used to do couples counselling. So there have been people that have come to me in the past they've been having problems. There are fractures in the relationship, and they are able to work on them. But it takes two. It takes a commitment and a conscious effort from both people to understand what the issues are, and then say, okay, how do we resolve these issues? If there is one person or even both people that are carrying too much baggage from their past, then I would suggest you also do some individual work at the same time, because otherwise you're not going to be able to overcome the problems together, because it's actually internal with you. But you can work on those as a couple. You can support each other and encourage each other and understand one another and understand what the triggers are and what the problems might be. And you can help each other through those. It might not necessarily get rid of the issue, because if it's something you've been carrying since childhood, then until you work on that for yourself, it's unlikely that it's ever going to go away. But yeah,
Yeah.
so long as both of the people are committed and have the same idea about where they want this relationship to go,
Mm.
yeah, of course you can work on sorting out those problems together, so long as they're
Yeah.
not insurmountable and too huge for you to be able to just do as a couple.
Yes. Yeah. That's true. So from your experience and from your coaching practice that you do and your programs also, I personally also believe that the presence of love is very important in a very healthy and intimate relationship. Well, how would you describe love, and how does it feel like to you?
I actually did a podcast episode about this a few months ago. Love
Yeah.
is I won't go into all the details that I did in the podcast, but I was going to say that love is a very individual experience.
Mm.
It's a feeling, it's a physical sensation, it's a mindset, it's lots of different things and I think that it's a very personal experience. We get love confused with lust. So when we first meet someone and we first become intimate with somebody, then our brain releases a load of chemicals, which it aids connection. Your brain saying you want to have children with this person,
Mm.
therefore I'm going to give you these hormones, these feel good hormones, which connect you to each other. So you
Yeah.
get oxytocin, dopamine, adrenaline, testosterone, and a few other serotonin, a few other kind of hormones, feel good hormones. So
Mm.
again, I've told people I loved them in the past and I didn't love them at all, but my brain was telling me that I did because it had just dumped this massive feel good hormones in my system. And I got
Mm.
that confused with love when it wasn't. It was just my body saying, you want to have babies with this person. You need to
Yeah.
connect quickly. Um,
Mm.
um, but for me, it's about that feeling of being complete. I don't use the word complete, complemented with somebody, um, that you are connected to them, that you trust them with you.
Mm.
That is love for me. Obviously, there's a physical attraction to it as well, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily love. But that wanting to be around somebody, but feeling completely comfortable in their company,
Yeah.
and knowing that they've got you,
Mm.
really knowing that they've got you, in more
Yes.
ways than one.
Mm. That sounds so lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So you talked about it already, like the language of love. Like some you might love saying "I love you" a lot to someone, and the other person just loves hugs and kisses, for example.
Yeah.
Like, can you educate me on how we could best understand each other's love languages,
Mm-hmm.
and how can we integrate it into each other, like find compromises or find common grounds in case, like you said earlier, like maybe you don't love holding hands or hugging or kissing, for example, but your partner loves that. Like, how do you come to terms to doing that, or come to terms to saying "I love you" if your partner loves saying that or something
Yeah.
like
So
that?
I loved something that Tony Robbins said, and I was when I was watching one of his trainings, and he said it's not about compromise. It's about doing it because you want to.
Mm.
It's about doing it because you love or like someone enough to put your stuff to one side and saying, I care about you enough to do this because I know it's what you want. And if I
Mm.
give you what you want, I'm going to get what I need in return. So
Mm.
if we can suspend our own stuff, I might not be a kissy cuddly person, which I am, but if I wasn't, but I
Yeah.
know that would make you happy, and I know that would increase the connection in our relationship, and we'd have a much better experience, then why
Mm.
wouldn't I do it?
Mm.
It's about just saying it's not about what I can get from this, it's about what I can give to this, which is actually going to also feed this relationship enough for me to feel good about it. So
Yeah.
if I know that you need to hear it, but it's not something I would normally do, I need to make a conscious effort because
Mm.
I know that's going to make you feel good, and then the relationship benefits from that. I
Yes,
know
that's
that
true.
you're going to feel safe and secure, you're going to feel loved, and then you're going to reciprocate that. And now I'm going to feel more secure with you because we're going to connect at a much deeper level because I'm prepared to give you what you need. I'm not talking about people pleasing. That's a completely different matter for a completely different show, maybe. People
Yeah.
pleasing is not a good space. So if you find that you're always giving to someone and not getting much in return, that's generally that because you're people pleasing. That's not going to make you happy. So I don't advocate that. But if you're in a healthy relationship with somebody and you know that by giving them what they need is going to make your relationship deeper and stronger, then again, unless you've got triggers and blocks to being able to do that, why wouldn't you do it? Because your life's going to fundamentally be better if you do.
Yes.
So it's about just putting yourself in that headspace, in that mindset, and saying, I'm going to do this for this person because I know it's going to benefit the relationship. And obviously, if the relationship gets benefited, I know it's going to benefit me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That sounds good. Earlier you were talking about finding fulfillment in a relationship. You made mention of fulfillment. So how do you know when a relationship is fulfilling to you, or when you are growing or expanding in terms of love or whatever your values are in a relationship?
Yeah. It's again, that's going to be a very individual thing, I think, because we all have our own ideas about what a relationship is and what fulfills us. But I think if you've got, I think again, that's that fundamental thing about trust, respect, that somebody's got you, that they're there for you, they've got your feelings and they've got your best interests at heart. And they're there for you when you need them, and the vice versa. You can give to them willingly
Yes.
because you want to. And again, that sense of connection that we then get is really fulfilling. As I said right at the beginning, it's a fundamental human need to feel connected to each other. And if you can have that deep, meaningful connection with someone, it will be fulfilling, just naturally will be fulfilling.
Yeah.
And if you can create that in your life, then you're going to have a much better quality of life all round.
Yes.
Because knowing that someone's got you, and I don't just mean that they understand you, I mean that they've got you, they're holding you, they give you that space where you feel held and secure, is immensely, it gives you so much empowerment and so much freedom in your life because you're not worried, you're not concerned that you're on your own, that you've got to look after yourself, that there's no one there for you, that you have to really try hard. There's a sense of contentment and comfortability about it, being in that space. And it's something that you can create for yourself if
Yes.
you know how to do it.
And if we don't know how to do it, then we have to consult you for coaching.
You can consult yourself. It's a lot of looking at yourself. So yeah, but if you do struggle with being able to kind of understand what it is that you need and where you come from, then definitely speak to someone like myself that can help you to get to that space.
Yes. I have a follow-up question to what you just said now. Like you said, we have to feel that, that connection, that deep, meaningful connection. And some people ask, how does that connection feel like? How do I know when things have connected and when it becomes meaningful? Is it just something I perceive or feel, or because it sounds so abstract sometimes when it says, wait for a connection or wait till you feel a connection? Like, how does that feel like when things are connected? Do you just know it?
Yeah. Again, I think it's going to be a very personal experience.
Okay.
We're all going to experience it differently. It's what it means to us that's important. But I think there is, like I said, there's a sense of security within that relationship. There's a fundamental kind of closeness that, again, that you can turn to that person whenever you need to. That they give you that sense of comfort. There's no need for ego within the relationship. It's not You're never trying to get one up on each other. There's a harmony
Mm.
in that relationship. I mean, it could be so many different things, but there's a contentment. There's so many kind of things that you could feel or think about the relationship, that would make you feel very safe in that space.
Mm.
And again, you can be yourself, feel very authentic and congruent with that person. And if you don't, then there's something that's holding you back from being yourself. Then
Yes.
you're not in a completely connected space,
Mm.
or you're
Yes.
connected in an unhealthy way.
Yeah. Okay. So we have to feel that sense of freedom and that sense of comfort in that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a book by Brendan Burchard, and he talks about freedom as being a fundamental human need.
Mm.
And I think within a relationship, I think that's very important, that you've got that sense of being held, but you've also got that sense of freedom. You
Mm.
can be you. There's no pressure on
Yes.
you to be anything else but you.
Mm.
And that person fully accepts that version of yourself. Just being
Mm.
you. One of the things I talk about with my clients is, it's so surprising how many people believe they need to put on a mask or a front when they go on dates. They have to put their best foot forward. Yes, I know that there is a sort of thing about, I want this person to like me, I want to put my best self forward, but so many people still put out a side of themselves which they believe to get them accepted by somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
rather than being who they are.
Mm.
And there's still some dating coaches out there that teach you tricks on how to get someone to like you and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
But being you is the most important thing when you go out into the dating world. When you're going out to meet somebody and starting a new relationship, the most
Yes.
fundamental thing that's important is you go out there and you are yourself, and the
Mm.
version of yourself that you're happy with.
Yes.
Because if you don't, you're just going to keep attracting people towards you that are buying into the tricks. They're buying into the mask. They're buying into the facade that you're putting on. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get to maybe spend some time with this person, and then you try and be yourself, and they haven't got no idea who you are. You've met them wearing this mask, and you take your mask off, and they're like, "Who's that? I don't know who you are." And they might say, "I don't want to be with you" at that point, or you might
Mm.
confuse them, or they might move away from you, or it could cause so many issues
Mm.
further down the line. If
Yeah.
you've worked on yourself enough, and you go out into the world of finding a new relationship, and
Mm.
you are you as much as yourself as you possibly can be, you know
Yes.
that person is with you because they like who you are. They're
Mm.
attracted to you because of you being yourself. And
Yeah.
it's very unlikely that somewhere down the line they're going to say, "You know what, I don't like who you are now," or "I don't know
Mm.
who you are now," because you're not changing.
Mm.
You're just evolving with them along the road of the relationship as you kind of take those next steps further forward together.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's massively important that you don't wear a mask, no matter how difficult that might seem. Because, like I said, we all want to put our best foot forward when we meet people, and we only have a certain 5 seconds or something. I think it is maybe even 2 seconds to make a first impression.
Mm.
In fact, it might even be smaller than that. But we don't have the second opportunity to make a good first impression.
That's true.
But actually, if you're going out there being comfortable, really hurt, it doesn't really matter impression what you make.
Mm. That's
Because
very
if
true.
someone's not interested in who you are for being you, then you don't want to be with them anyway.
Of course. Of course, that's very true. So, through your coaching program and your podcast, you help people with their relationships, like we've already discussed already. So can you share more about the interpersonal relationship coaching and the Relationship Guide podcast? Can you tell us more about them, and what are the best listeners for your podcast, and who are the best clients for your coaching program also?
Yeah, so I'll do the podcast first. So the
Mm.
podcast is the Relationship Guy podcast, and it's a mixture of my own ramblings. So I kind of talk one week about a certain topic, and then the
Mm.
other week I'll have a guest on, and they'll talk about themselves and the significance of relationships to their life. So it could be a personal relationship, it could be family relationships, it could be friendships, it could be their work life. But there's a significance of the relationships to the success that they've been able to achieve in their lives. And I'll talk about various things such as attachment theory, gaslighting, how to have a good relationship with yourself. And I'll talk about various things like that in sort of kind of a more of an informational type style. And that's been running just for about 3 months now, since July of 2021. So yeah, I think we've done 20 episodes maybe, but it's if people are interested in understanding how there are different facets to relationships and the things we could be aware of in order to live the kind of relationships that we want and the kind of things we could come across which could cause us problems, and also interested in how other people see relationships and how they use relationships in their lives and the impacts that relationships have had, then it's a really good listen.
That's good.
The interpersonal relationship coaching, the IRC, is, as I said, is something that I thought when I went into coaching, I didn't want to let go of the counselling completely, and I didn't want to let go of all the other training that I've done that's useful. So I thought, what can I put together which is going to be fundamental in helping people to have good interpersonal relationships? So I use the coaching. I use my background in counselling. I use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to help people to understand this kind of dynamic of language that they use within themselves, and a few other things from that. I did some hypnotherapy, and occasionally I might use hypnotherapy because when we're looking at people's past, sometimes we can get a bit stuck in trying to really figure out what's going on. So we could talk about things and, we don't really remember things properly before the age of sort of 5 or 3 years of age. We don't really have a memory of that before that time. But actually, attachment theory, the attachment style, generally develops before that. But we can have a look at the kind of the circumstances that someone grew up in to understand their patterns and beliefs and attachment style. But sometimes there's this just doesn't make any sense. We don't understand what's going on. So I use the hypnotherapy to access the subconscious, and the subconscious has all your answers in there somewhere. And then we go back into the past and we look at specific events in your life and we try and access the meanings to things through the subconscious. So that's if people have blockers that we can't get to otherwise. So I use all of that within the coaching when and where it's necessary. And it's a 90-day program to start with, because generally people take about 90 days to learn a new habit. There's a kind of a range between 21 days and 200 and something days that your brain needs time to work on something, depending on how complex it is for you to learn it as a new skill. But it's on average, it's about 84 days. So the 90-day program gives us enough time to look at what the problems are, look at where you want to get to, and then overcome any resistances that might kick in, because your brain has a habit of trying to keep you safe. But unfortunately, your brain doesn't know what safe is sometimes. Familiar to your brain is safe. It doesn't really like change. So it'll keep you stuck in certain patterns. It'll keep you stuck in certain spaces. And when you try and break away from that, it says this isn't safe. And it tries to get you to revert back to the space that it knows best. So during those 90 days, we generally come up against some kind of resistance to change. And that gives us enough time to say, okay, we know what your brain is trying to do. And then we implement, again, new habits, new changes that then allows your brain to relax and say, this is okay. This is okay for me to do something differently. And that's why the program is the way that it is over the 90 days.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I'm going to place all of the links to this, to your podcast and to your program also in the show notes of this episode. So I encourage everyone to click on it. sign up for the program and listen to the podcast episode. Like I got some questions from the podcast actually. It's really awesome. Like what is love, for example, is the title of an episode. I got it from there.
Right.
I was like, I must talk with John about this.
Yeah. I'm glad you listened to it. It's a very interesting. It's a very interesting. I mean, if I say so myself, because love wasn't seen as a romantic thing until the Renaissance period. You know, and romance hasn't been around that long. But when we think of love as an intimate relationship, and we think of romance, we think of wooing, and you know the sentiment that goes behind that. And actually, that's a very new concept in the time of human history. Before that, it wasn't something we ever really worried about. So it's a very interesting topic.
Yes, that's true. I would also love us to talk about your book. You have the PEOPLE program.
That's right.
So what does people stand for? That's an acronym for something, right?
It is, yes. So when I first got into coaching in 2016 and just focusing on the coaching, I decided to write a kind of a 6-part coaching program. And I thought about what were the 6 fundamental things that people would need to work on. And this was based around overcoming blocks to success. So self-sabotaging behaviors. So I was a massive self-sabotager. I'm not sure if you've seen from some of my stuff. I used to be an international athlete. I used to sprint for Great Britain back in the day. And I used to sabotage everything I did. Everything that was ever good in my life, I would ruin it because of the way I thought about life and about myself. So I thought, how can I put that into a coaching program? So when I first started coaching, I wrote the people program as a coaching program. Then, because I then went more off into relationships, it was still, I thought, a very good program, but it wasn't really it was relatable, but it wasn't really where I was going with the coaching. So I thought, I'll turn it into a book. I didn't want to leave it completely because I knew it would be very useful for people. So what I decided to do was write a book, and the first half of the book is my life story. So it talks about how I learned to have this relationship with myself, how I learned to do relationships with others, how I learned to see myself, which then led to all the self-sabotaging behaviors, which were then blocking my success story in life, how far I was able to push myself and how much I believed I deserved and all that kind of stuff. And then the second half of the book is the 6-part program. So you can go through that story yourself and ask yourself the questions you need to ask and put things in place which can help you to overcome any of those blocks. So it's your problems, your emotions, how you operate, so how you behave and act, then the patterns, which are very important. Then the L stands for likelihood. So it's how is your life going to look if you don't change? And then the E stands for enhance. So how is your life going to look when you change? So it's how you're going to put all of the things that you've learned so far through the program and from reading the book. How are you going to put all of that into place in order to help yourself to move forward?
Yes. So in the book, you explain to us how we could overcome our blocks to success. And through this,
so that's what it's called. It's called the People Program: How to Overcome Your Blocks to Success.
Yes.
But because it wasn't specifically around relationships, that's why I decided to turn the actual coaching program into a book, and I wrote a completely different program just to focus on relationships.
That's brilliant, actually. Yes, that's so good.
But obviously took some elements from that with me because it was all fundamental to healthy relationships as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So as a last question, how would you advise someone out there who is, scared of having a relationship or getting connected with someone or getting vulnerable with someone? How would you advise such a person?
It's again, look in the mirror to understand what that is. So what is that about for you? Why is there a fear? There's a phrase that says there are two fundamental feelings in life, and that's love and fear. But I actually think it's love and loss. If we don't experience loss, then we're not fearful of things. Fear is generally based in what am I going to lose here? How am I going to get hurt? What's going to be taken from me? What's going to go wrong? How am I going to be caused some kind of pain? For someone to understand what's stopping them, they need to understand what their fear of loss is. So, and then to think about how it's interesting you use the word vulnerable there. It's everybody has a kind of a different meaning or connotation of the word vulnerable. Now, I look at vulnerable as a healthy thing. A lot of people, I used to look at vulnerable, as a lot of people do, as if I'm vulnerable, someone can hurt me. Whereas I don't look at vulnerable like that at all anymore, because no one can hurt me. I can only allow someone to hurt me.
Yeah.
So I can go out there and give everything of myself to someone if I want to, and I can be vulnerable.
Yes.
If they don't want that, then that doesn't mean it's going to hurt me. Or if it does hurt me, I'm still going to be okay. But it's okay for me to be vulnerable. It doesn't mean I'm going to get hurt. But what it means is I can give something of myself and be open with somebody and allow them to accept that or not accept that. And that's entirely up to them whether they do that or not.
Yeah, true.
I was a massive avoidant person. My way of dealing with emotions as a child was to shut down, to remove myself from emotionally difficult situations. I'd run away from home. I'd spend a lot of time by myself. I'd play out in the street to get out of kind of the environment I was growing up in. So I know what that's like to get into adult life and then not feel safe and secure committing to somebody else or connecting with somebody else.
Yeah.
So again, it's understanding that part of yourself. If I don't allow myself to connect with someone at a deeper level, there's something going in my subconscious, and my brain is saying this is not a safe space for you. There's a fear there, fear of pain, fear of loss. So you won't allow yourself to commit to that space. And understanding where that kind of comes from, I think, is really important if you are the type of person that finds it difficult to really allow yourself to be vulnerable and connect to someone at a deeper, more meaningful level.
Yes. Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate everything you taught me in this episode. But for someone out there who still has, more questions or wants to connect with you, what's the best way to connect and work with you?
Yes, if you just go to my website, which is www.therelationshipguide.co.uk. Just go to there. You can fill out a form, send me a question, query, whatever you want. You can just book in I offer a complimentary relationship breakthrough session. So just fill out something there. You can go straight through to my calendar and book yourself in, and we can have a chat about what it is that you need and if coaching's the right thing for you.
Yes.
Oh, and you can find me all over social media. John Kinney Coaching everywhere.
Yes. So once again, all of this information will be available in the show notes of this episode to make it easier for you to just click on it or copy it and just get across to John Kenny and ask him all the questions you want to ask him, or get some coaching services from him, or just order the book on Amazon and read it to, overcome the blocks to your success. Thank you so much, John, for this wonderful conversation. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Toby. Thank you very much for having me.
Wow, you made it to the very end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful for your time, your love, and your contributions. Subscribe, like, review, and share this podcast. God bless you. Bye.